Right, hello everybody. Since it is another design competition, this time the treaty cruisers, and lots of people have been asking, I thought it's time to throw together a quick rough and ready guide as to how to Springsharp. Now, for this you need the Springsharp program, the version 3 beta, which you can download from their website. Just Google Springsharp ship design and it'll come up. Now, within that, once you've got it up and running, we're just going to walk through how to create a basic treaty cruiser, and it's nothing particularly spectacular. It's not a really advanced tutorial. There are lots of tips, tricks, techniques, and other tutorials out there if you really want to get stuck in. But for those of you who have no idea how any of this works, this should get you something that looks vaguely like a serviceable design. So with that said, let's get stuck in. So, whilst I am trying and desperately failing to spell the word heavy cruiser amongst putting in the name and country and type of the ship, as well as the date, we're going to say 1935, it's important to note that I've put into paint down there at the bottom the basic stats of the New Orleans class heavy cruiser. And yes, that was cribbed from Wikipedia because it's an easy, quick reference. It doesn't have to be exactly accurate because this is just to get us in the ballpark for the design. So you can see I'm putting in the length. The length in feet doesn't really allow for inches, but it's something close enough to it. You'll see we have the coefficient down here. This, for the minute, we can leave as is. You can play around with it a little bit later on to try and get the final results up to spec, but we're now going to go over to freeboard. This is very important. At the moment, our ship is 0 freeboard, so it will just sink. The water will come straight over it. So we're just going to put the freeboard up. We're going to take a random, well, not so random figure. 20 feet is relatively decent. And we're going to check the stern. We're going to use a cruiser stern. Well, hey, it's a cruiser because we don't need any of those other options. Same with the bow. Don't need any of those options. We have left a rather big chunk out on the aft deck, however, so let's play with that. Now, obviously, this is now a flush deck cruiser. It's somewhat ahistorical, as many cruisers did have a lower quarter deck and aft deck, but whatever. We're going with a slightly more seaworthy design, something more like a county class, and we're just angling the bow and stern a little bit for a bit of fun. So we're going clicking flush deck, so we get a nice profile there, and we're ready to go into the guns. Now in the guns, we're going to go into the main battery first. And within the main battery, you'll see we have number of barrels, so we're going to put that up to 9. Caliber's 8 inches, going to leave the barrel length the same. Then shell weight, shells per gun, this is all fine. We're making sure it's a breech loading gun, it's not a dual purpose gun or anything like that. This is all great. If you're going with a specific historical gun, obviously make sure you get the barrel length and calibers right and the exact shell weight and loadout. Number of mounts, we need 3 mounts, and we are going to go with the turret on barbette mount, which is the one you want to select for pretty much any modern warship design in the period that we're talking about. Now, we're then going to add some armor to these turrets, which is pretty important. So again, using the approximate historical values. And that's the barbette there. Now you'll notice it says 3 single mounts, and that is because you'll see in Group 1 and Group 2, the single mounts are still being used. Now we're going to select the type of layout. So Group 1 is your forward guns, Group 2 is your aft guns, generally speaking. So we're going to go with, what should we go with? Should we go with centerline forward deck? That seems sensible. And then on the aft, we're going to go centerline on Group 2 centerline aft deck. And now we need to say how many guns are where. So at the moment, we've got basically 3 mounts forward, which is not good. So we want to have 1 mount forward, 2 mounts forward, 1 mount after, sorry. And you'll notice at the bottom it still says single mounts on the center line, and that's because you see here you have the option to choose what kind of mount. So we're going to go with a 3-gun mount, so that means that each gun can elevate independently, as opposed to, technically speaking, a twin or a triple, where it is all locked in one unit. So there we go. Now we have the 3-gun turrets, and we're going over to the secondary battery. So in this case, we need 8 barrels. and they're going to be the good old 5-inch 38 caliber. And we're just going to leave that except for dual purpose gun. I will leave everything else. A number of mounts. Well, we've got twin mounts, so they are going to be deck mounts rather than turrets. And we need hoists for the guns, though, for the shells. So we're a deck and hoist mount. And we're going to go with 4 of them because it's 4 twins. So we're going to put them on 2-gun mounts or twin mounts. Let's go with 2-gun mounts. Don't need to worry about group 2 as it turns out. And then we're going to put them on the sides evenly distributed. So we have 2 twin gun mounts either side. We should probably put some armor on the gun faces themselves, but I missed that at this point, so we just went off to do the tertiary battery. And this is just deck mounts. These are the quad 50 cal machine gun mounts. So 2 mounts, set up the same way. Actually, we're going to put them fore and aft in this case. We're going to leave all of that. Yeah, 0.5 inch. We're going to make a slightly longer barrel weapon and 2 mounts. And these are going to be quad mounts. There we go. So you see, quite lightweight, these things. But we're going to give just a bit of splinter shielding. And now it's onto the armor. So again, basing off of the standard defaults on the New Orleans class, we're initially going to go for our 5-inch thick armor. And you see it tells you on the top right there the minimum belt length to cover the machinery and magazines. So that's your citadel. So initially we're putting it at 100 feet because that's what it suggests. This will change. I'm going to make it 15 foot high. So that's quite a high belt, quite a lot of protection. Especially because we've got a 20-foot freeboard. So some of this belt will go handily underneath the armor. End protection. So this is the lesser 3-inch. And what else are we going to select? Oh yeah, armor deck. So forecastle deck, fore and aft decks, and if you remember from our freeboard diagram, that's the middle of the ship. The quarter deck is at the far back. So full length deck in this case actually. And then yes, we need to go with a single deck thickness because that otherwise would be silly. There we are. And we've put in a 5-inch conning tower as well while we were at it. So you can see if you scroll down, it gives you a diagram that quickly gives you an idea of what is going on in what the various labels mean. Inclined decks, protected decks, belt armor, etc., etc. So now we are going to go and have a look at an upper strake of armor. Just a little bit of splinter protection. And well, I guess it's an overall weight of armor. Now, while we're thinking about that, that's actually gone too high because that's taller than our hull probably. But anyway, we'll come back and edit that because you'll see initially this doesn't work. So 31 knots speed. Just using that slightly slower than the average New Orleans, but there you go. The cruise speed is 16 knots, giving ourselves 4 shafts, and of course we are oil fired using steam turbines, and we're going to use geared turbines. Engine factor, you've got basically heavier engines that will work for longer, and then high performance engines that are lightweight but will brake quicker. So we're just going to put it in at 50-50 basically, and then going to set our range as well. This is the range we want to be operating at. So we're going to go with 10,000 miles, because why not? Nice long-range cruiser there. Now we're going to switch over to performance. You can see the trim. And here's the thing you want to check. Composite strength of 0.87. So our ship is way too weak. Basically means it'll snap in half in a decent seaway. So we need to change a few things. So you can see here, because we've actually got engines now, the main belt has got a lot longer, the Citadel. So we're extending the main belt, and we've realised our error with the upper strake there, so we're taking that off and we're cutting the ends down a fair bit. So there goes the upper strake completely. This is a mistake of putting in bulge. I actually meant to put in torpedo bulkhead, but I will realise that and change that in a minute. That's not actually helped. Our composite strength has gone down, so we pop back to the main screen. What else can we do? And it's at this point I notice the beam between bulkheads too wide, and I realise that I need to address this. This is where the mistake of the bulge and torpedo bulkhead was found. So the beam between bulkheads, so my bulkheads are right out on the edge of the ship, so that's no good. So I'm going to pull that in a bit. So I now have space between the bulkheads and the hull of the ship. And I'm looking around, see, I'm very confused at the minute. I'm thinking, now, where have I gone wrong? Something is wrong here, because it shouldn't be this week, because I've got something that's vaguely close to a New Orleans class. The New Orleans class were not known for just snapping randomly in half. So I tried taking the armour deck down, see if that will work. Nope, that doesn't have any help whatsoever. So put that back in. So I'm looking around, engines, no, armour. Ah, there you go. See, now I've realised what's going on. Right, so 1 inch thick torpedo bulkhead, same length as the Citadel, get rid of the bulge. And then also, right, to have a look at the engines range. Let's cut the range down a bit, because that was an awful lot of fuel. No, not 750 miles, 7,500. There we go. Now you see our composite strength down there has jumped up to 0.87, so we don't have a bulkhead problem. And our engine factor, we're just going to mess around with a bit, but it basically stays the same. So our composite strength has jumped up to 0.87, which is much better than 0.75, but still not brilliant. So what else can we do? We can reduce the maximum speed slightly. Now that had a fairly big effect, because obviously less speed needs less powerful engines, needs less space. And we're also going to take off the end arm, or no, we're going to reduce it basically to splinter protection only. We're getting close now. We're at 0.97, so we're almost at 1, which is where you want to be. So we're going to look at maybe, nope, not 4. That's just put the weight up even further. That's not helped. So we're going to look at taking the armour deck protection outside the Citadel down a bit. Have to leave the conning tower in place for historical reasons. Let's pop back up, see what else we can do. Beam between bulkheads, that's not helping at all, so leave that alone. And so after eliminating a little bit of weight that I'd accidentally put into torpedoes, which was a bit stupid, I ended up getting to a composite strength of 1.0, which is always fun. So that means the ship is now, in theory, pretty much on the money, but my displacement, you see, is a little bit too high, 10,700 tons. So this is where you can start playing around with the block coefficient. So anyway, now we've achieved our aim of something with a relevant composite strength, we can start playing around with various bits and pieces of the relevant affected statistics. So in this case, we're going to have a look at the armour deck. And what we're going to do here is we're going to take off the splinter plating on the deck fore and aft, and we're going to ramp the middle deck up, the centre of the deck up to 2.5. So that's given us a little bit more strength. We're going to drop the cruising speed slightly to give us a little bit more composite strength to play with in other places. And so we're going to see if we can get a bit more range. That's pushed our composite strength up a fair bit. So with our composite strength up a fair bit, we can now play around with the block coefficient and the displacement. So you see, if you move it, it's changing the displacement, but also the composite strength. So making it more destroyer-like, more fine. We're making our ship more fragile. And you can see you can play around with the composite strength to try and get a precise equivalent displacement. Up and down with the numbers we go, and they're about sort of 9,000–10,000 tons, but our composite strength is now 0.98, which isn't brilliant. So it's just a bit too weak. check everything else. So we need to save a little bit of weight on this. Not a tremendous amount we can do with the engines. We've already cut the range a bit. That doesn't really do anything. That just affects your stability. You can just see there with the style. Set it back to 50. So what can we do? Dragging the dial up and down isn't really helping. So get it to 1 at just over 10,000 tons. We want to hit dead on 10,000. So the hunt is on. Got composite strength of 1.0. Couple of hundred, less than a couple of hundred tons to save. So we go and we eliminate the 50 cal machine guns. What's that do? That drops us down. Not a tremendous amount. How about our armour? We've got that splinter protection on the ends. Haven't got any torpedoes. We put in 100 tons for radar. So what do? We're going to see what happens if we eliminate. What happens if we put the deck armour back down to the 2.25? So that's taken our composite strength up to 1.03. We put in 10,000 tons, not displacement, and oh, look at that, 10,000 ton displacement, and we are now at composite strength 1.1. Freeboard, haven't got the 50 cals. Armour's slightly different. We've still got that splinter protection, and there we go, composite strength 1.1. And the report's in red. That's because that's the original report. It's still got that beam within bulkheads too wide. So create the report, and there we go. It's not exactly like a New Orleans class, but it's a reasonable facsimile of a sort, and it works. Put it that way. It'll be perhaps not the strongest entry in such a competition, but it's something. So let's save that. And we're just going to call it EXP1. And now we're going to play around with some of the settings to create our own more custom unit. So what we're going to do, we're going to change the guns. So at first I thought, well, let's try one of those Churchill specials, 9.2-inch guns, 4 quad mounts, 3 quad mounts, that's it, 3, I'm going to go with 4 gun mounts. So we've got 12 barrels. But oh look, our composite strength has dropped to 0.72. This is not particularly fantastic. So what else can we do? We've got armour. We can try and maybe drop the armour. That doesn't seem like such a good idea. Nope. On 10,000 tons, we're not getting 12 9.2-inch guns for love nor money. Try taking down the weight. Barely moves. Barely changes anything, but let's leave it there at 6 for the minute. Don't have any torpedoes. Now there's the secondary battery, so this is now British ship, so we're going to go with 4.5-inch guns instead. Same number, same locations. Does not really change anything again because it's not particularly major system. So let's acknowledge that we're not going to get our 12 barrels and go down to 9 in 3 triple or 3 gun mounts. Well, that's a lot better, 0.86, but still not fantastic. So what about if we go to twin mounts, drop a barrel, so down to 8 barrels, and there we go. Oh, no, not 5, 2. There you go. 2 mounts aft, 2 mounts forward, and 0.91, so we can work with this. Secondary battery. Probably should have some splinter protection on our anti-aircraft guns. Someone's messaging me. Apologies, whoever that is. That, incidentally, was somebody thinking that there was a 60 gunship of the line doing rescue work during the storms we're having in the UK at the moment. But never mind. Anyway, we're taking off the splinter protection at the ends of the ship. And We are also taking out the conning tower because this is a World War II era British ship. They don't believe in the conning tower anymore. So that saved us a bit of weight. We're still not brilliant, but let's drop the armour down to rather British 4.5 inches. And what else can we do? We're not going to change any of the machinery really. But remember, British Imperial, we can drop the range because we don't need anything quite as much range because we've got loads of bases everywhere. So 5,000 mile range, 0.97. So we're getting close. Let's go over to here. We're going to just change the country of origin there. And now we're going to play around a little bit with the hull size. So we've got a 10,000 ton displacement. And what we do? Let's play around a bit with the draft and the beam, and we're making the ship slightly narrower, slightly longer, and we're getting close, so let's put the draft up a little bit more, and a bit more. That's not helping. So 21-foot draft. What else? What else is there to do? We're so close. 0.99. 580? Oh yeah, take 20 foot off the front and we are at 1.01. So let's check our freeboard. It's pretty much as was with the Faux New Orleans. Haven't got any torpedoes, got 100 tons for radar. Can't really do much with the deck. Should actually extend that citadel a bit. Our citadel's got a bit longer. But I missed that while I was recording this video, only picking that up now. Can't really play around with the maximum speed that much. Now here I am adding 500 miles of range, not 55,000, 500, thank you. But yeah, I should have just extended the ship's armor a little bit there. But yeah, there we have it, to regen the report. So that would be an error on my part if that design was submitted. The citadel doesn't quite cover the belt, but I can go back and re-edit that. But in this case, I've now changed the format to a British cruiser mounting 4 twin turrets using the 9.2-inch gun. So there we go. So that's a bit of a process of trial and error. Unfortunately, I haven't actually used Springsharp for about 3 or 4 months, so I did make a few mistakes, particularly that one at the end, forgetting to extend the citadel, but it gives you an idea of how to use the program and some of the pitfalls to look out for, because, hey, best way to learn is from the mistakes of others. And so, yeah, that's how you can produce a simple, vaguely working ship design. And hopefully this is of some benefit to you. And I know there's an awful lot of people in both the Discord and who will probably be watching this who are much, much better at Springsharp than I am, and that's the reason why they help me with the judging. So if any of them have any comments, suggestions, etc. for improving your techniques beyond the very basic stuff that I've done here, please feel free to say so in the comments. And other than that, thank you very much for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it, and see you again in another video.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.